So, Jim, I thought with 45 countries represented at the conference, diversity would be a good way to start our conversation. 2 weeks ago, the National Association of Black Journalists sent an open letter to Vox Media, as well as several other of the major new digital companies, expressing concern or really inviting you to work with them as you continue to hire staff to ensure a diverse workforce. And I'm going to read one little segment of their letter and ask you to comment on it and give us some specifics of how you can maybe alleviate the concerns that the letter expressed. So it stated, "The age-old reason given for failed efforts is that managers cannot find qualified candidates of color. Unfortunately, this refrain already is creeping into the conversation around startups, and journalists of color are frustrated at feeling shut out of the hiring wave."
It's an accurate statement, and in our case, of course, Vox.com hasn't launched yet, and it's only even been hiring for a couple of months, and I'm proud to say that at launch, which will be soon, I think our audience, our staff will benefit from being diverse, and diverse in all as many senses of that word as possible, right? Ideologically, racially, gender-wise, and it's obviously important to create a great product, but as a company, it's also important to enable the type of creativity that we aspire to create. And so, we can do a better job, but I think we're doing a good job, and we already are reaching out to organizations who have offered to help, and we're getting their advice, and it's leading to better and better outcomes. The quote makes a good point that it's not enough just to sit back and wait for the resumes to come in, because it's true, like the resumes aren't going to come in the numbers that you need them to, and so you have to build bridges into the community in order to get the access to the talent, which is exactly what we're now doing. If we had to do it again, I mean, it's hard when you're a startup and you're moving very fast and you're just trying to get certain things done. If I had to do it again, I think we would have started day one by reaching out to those organizations. We started, month one, which isn't too bad, and I'm proud that we're able to do that. But I think judge us on our results ultimately.
And I think one of the issues that sort of some of the legacy companies had a problem with was particularly private companies not being very transparent about their numbers. And obviously, you probably talk about transparency in all forms. Do you have sort of a strategy of how people will know how to judge you by the diversity of staff?
I don't make those rules. I mean, I think it's an important thing to us, and so we want to create the best possible product with the best possible team, and so I'll leave it to everyone else to judge. But there are things that we're going to be doing, including finding ways to embrace journalism schools, finding ways to embrace a new class of young talent and enabling them, and some innovative things that I think we can be doing. And I think the general theme is when you do have a fresh start, you can avoid some of the institutional pitfalls that have kind of been encountered historically. And we're going to do everything we can within our means to do that, and we're going to not make excuses about it.
With SBNation, you established a very successful network by pulling together blogs and sites produced by sort of sports fans rather than hiring a lot of professional journalists. With Vox.com and The Verge, you're now aggressively recruiting and hiring journalists, and including some very highly paid one. Can you talk about sort of the difference in the business models and a site that is going to be free and ad dependent, there's no guarantees of success there, and talk about what gives you confidence, particularly for Vox.com.
Couple of different big important questions embedded in that. On the first one, while there are some, I mentioned our humble roots, and there are some differences in terms of the types of people we're hiring as we're growing, there's more commonalities. And I think the biggest thing that is common is that we find people who are passionate about their topic and knowledgeable about their topic, who have the credibility and authority. Really, we think of them as the web experts on a given topic, whether that topic is the San Francisco Giants or the UT Longhorns or healthcare or Samsung devices or Austin restaurants. And we find the person who has been creating content, writing video, et cetera, about that topic, creating community around that topic, and we try to empower them. And so that's a common thread across the first SBNation site to our imminent launch of Vox.com. We pay everyone, all the people who write for all the sports sites, including all the way up through our lead editors. But we have a saying that what makes them strong is that these are people who would be doing it even if they weren't getting paid, because they're that passionate about it. And I think everyone in this room shares that passion for whatever they do. And if you don't, this industry is too tough and going to be too competitive to waste your time with it. If you're, I don't think anyone really enters journalism for the money, although you do get, you do deserve to be paid a great market rate, and that's what we do. We try to pay above market where we can because we want to retain and attract the best possible talent. But they'd be doing it anyway, I think, because they care about what they're doing so much. With regard to supporting that, absolutely right. It doesn't really matter if you don't have a sustainable business model, and ours is growing and strong. Our revenues are growing at a rapid rate, roughly doubling year over year. And I touched upon it a little bit. I have a separate presentation that talks a little bit more about advertising, but really all the principles that I talked about in terms of talent, technology, culture that apply to creating online media brands and telling online stories also apply to the business, the advertising side of it. If you think about it, marketers have a comparable challenge as we do as media brand creators, in that they want to tell stories to audiences. In their case, their audiences are their customers and their potential customers. And they need to do that digitally because their audiences are moving online. They're moving away from other types of consumption. And so the same tools and processes and techniques that we've developed to tell stories to our audiences, we can put those capabilities to work for advertisers and help create a sustainable and prosperous business for ourselves. And we're well on our way to doing that.
In your presentation and a little bit in the video about Vox.com, the word experimentation came up. Can you give us any hints of, is this going to be experimentation in story form, in, just maybe sort of tantalize us a bit?
Yes. I think there will be experimentation in story form, in user interface. As I said, though, I think out of the gate, the most impressive thing is going to be the speed of which we've been able to launch this and the quality of the content and the experience. The Chorus platform enables us to do things in a high-quality way and do it quickly. And there will be some really interesting formats. But, I don't want to give away too much because I want everyone to be there on day one.
All right. We want to open the conversation up to those of you in the room. So Rosenthal, is there microphones too? Great. I see a hand right up there. Oh, you got one. Yes.
Hi, Jim. Jay Rosen from NYU.
Where is Jay? Oh.
Right here.
Okay.
When we had a conversation about 4 years ago, I think it was 2010, and it was before you started The Verge, you talked a lot about the CMS and how important that was to the success of SBNation. And I remember asking you at the time if you were considering selling that product to other media companies, the content management system that you developed for SBNation. And you said at the time that you were considering that, but you weren't there yet, and you think you might want to just work on it and develop it yourselves instead.
I thought we were off the record during that conversation, Jay.
This is 4 years ago, man. So I'm wondering, obviously you decided to keep it for yourselves and keep developing it, and you explained very well why it's such an important thing for your company. But could you go back and just explain that decision? Why did you decide to keep it for yourself as opposed to licensing it for other media companies?
I think we could have established a really great business licensing it out. I mean, I think, our product is the best. We don't even call it a CMS because CMS applies certain limits, which Chorus breaks through in terms of campaign management, data layers, advertising integration, community management, all sorts of great stuff. So, if we wanted to go off and be a WordPress competitor, I think we would have been very successful at that. But we're a young company, and we were focused and, frankly, disciplined. We chose a path for us, which is around being the path that you see here today. I think when companies try to do too much, including be a consumer-driven ad business and be a B2B services business, it injects a whole lot of risk that often leads to failure. So while I think there's an alternative universe where that's happening, and we're doing really well there, that's not the path that we chose.
Is there a microphone on that side? Yes.
Hi, I'm Laura Lurick, and I founded Silicon Hills News here, which covers Austin and San Antonio technology companies. I really enjoyed your presentation. My question has to do with your organic growth. How do you convince advertisers to advertise with you when you haven't spent a dime on advertising? I'm glad that you mentioned that because I knew at some point I would get that question when I brag about not spending money on advertising. I think our business model, I think if our product, frankly, if an up-and-coming media product needs to pay money to advertise itself, something is wrong. If you can't organically grow your traffic in our particular business, in our particular stage, you're not doing a good job, A. B, I don't know if our business model, we're not selling cars, we're not selling hamburgers, we're not selling premium products. We're growing an audience and selling advertising against it. So our business model isn't really well suited to pay for traffic. It's also, frankly, a crutch. If you can't grow your own traffic, you probably shouldn't be doing what you're doing. You should reevaluate it. However, the marketers that work with us, they're selling wireless service, they're selling cars, they're selling beer, they're operating under a different economic model where advertising is a critical thing for what they do, and they need to create the image and create the brand. So, of course, we believe wholeheartedly in marketing and advertising, but different industries, different business models do it in different ways.
Hi, thank you so much for letting me borrow your mic. So the question I'm Beth Elderkin, Time Warner Cable News. I was really curious about the topics you plan on covering with Vox.com, particularly like politics and education, because education's my bread and butter. The question I had is, with those type of subjects, a lot of times they have completely different coverage and priorities when you're focusing on local, regional, or national. So how do you plan on balancing between the topics that matter to people on a national scale and what matters to people locally, particularly with topics like education, with parents? And follow-up, do you plan on expanding regionally at any point in the future?
As I said, much smarter media nerds in this room than me, but I love thinking about these topics, and I know our whole team does, and so it's an insightful question, at least by my judgment, because we ask it to ourselves a lot. Vox.com is starting off nationally, and so the audience will receive. We're going to try to find things that are relevant on a national level. That might mean, and I'm not the education editor, so I don't want to speak for her, but pulling out local examples to illustrate national points is one example. But over time, I think you're right. If you look at our sports model, which SBNation, for those of you less familiar, said 300 different sites plus a national banner. The same with Eater, Curbed, and Racked, which have approximately 20 different city sites and national banners too. Over time, you can see that occurring potentially in education. We don't have any plans to do that yet, but sure, as we sit there and think about what the future might hold, maybe there's potential there. We'll see.
Hi. Thank you so much for the talk. My name is Lara Satrakia, and I'm the founder of Syria Deeply. We do in-depth foreign news and global issues. And I was wondering how the news vertical itself is going to make money, or would you accept that it won't, and it will be some sort of loss leader? How are you going to make money on news itself?
You know, the answer is the same that I gave about how we're going to make money generally. Vox, the news site, won't be any different than the sports site or the I don't know, any of the 7 sites, in that we're trying to create valuable audience and then create valuable advertising products and work with marketers that let them tell their stories in really, great ways. Advertising has stunk in other mixed audiences. I say it in harsher terms sometimes, but advertising's been really bad. It can be good. Web content has been really bad. It could be good. Web design has been really bad. It can be good. If we make it good, we have shown that we can bring in marketers. News doesn't have to be any different. One thing about our company, if you look at those 7 different categories that I mentioned, they have something in common, which is the audience. What's different is they're different passion points contextually. Someone might care about retail and fashion. Someone else might care about technology and culture. Some people might care about both, depending on what mode they're in. But if you back up, we have these 7 authoritative brands with a common audience. So in some ways, you can view it as almost sections of a newspaper, but each being an authoritative brand. From a marketing perspective, from an ad sales perspective, we can go out and sell the audience as opposed to saying, we're selling necessarily news or sports or whatever. So that's an opportunity for marketers that are looking for context. We have that. For marketers that are looking for audience, we have that.
I have a question here. I'm actually wanted to know if you are profitable or if you're not, when you're actually thinking you will be. And the other question is that how big newsroom you can actually currently support with your business model.
Great. I'm sorry I couldn't see you with the lights, but hi. So we're operating at about break even right now. Each of the 6 brands are profitable. We're investing in the new 7th, but even with the new 7th, we expect to be profitable. But this year, so we feel good about the model in that sports, which is the longest tenured of our things, is the margins increase every year and they're very healthy margins. We're just launching Vox.com, so obviously out of the gate that's not profitable, but we expect that it can be in short order, and we certainly hope it will be.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Hi. Thank you for the talk. I would like to know. You have created a new media brand, but I would like you to give an advice to a legacy media brand. What could they do that they are not doing at the moment? And if you can name one legacy brand that you think that is doing well. Thank you.
There's a reason I left legacy media to start something new, and first of all, the people, I assume you're one of them, who are working on legacy media are every bit as entrepreneurial and certainly creative and aspiring as the people who are working on pure play startups. So I don't come at it from a point of superiority or arrogance, but we don't have certain encumbrances, a lot of them, cultural, technology, brand, audience. It's difficult. You can have all the same ideas that I presented here, and I bet you do, and I bet you probably have better ideas too, yet executing against those ideas in the culture with the legacy business models that you have is just extraordinarily difficult. So I don't have a prescription, but if the guidance I would give would be to do everything that you can do culturally to if you're committed to change, truly committed to change, then be committed to change. I see some duplicity in terms of what companies say they're committed to in terms of digital future, and then what their actions are, where their investments are made, the risk that they're willing to take, risk for big cash flow models versus uncertain cash flow models. and therefore the cultures and the leadership changes that come out of that. We need, if we want to do it, you need bolder leadership, you need bolder action, you need a culture and a financial commitment that most legacy media companies say they want, but they don't really.
Hi. Hi, I'm Sarah Peralta. I'm a recent graduate from Texas State University's graduate program Mass Comm, and I currently work as a FLAC for a nonprofit, but that's another matter. I wanted to kind of continue to bug you about your diversity initiative, and I don't want to give you too much of a hard time, but just some thoughts. My graduate program happened to be especially diverse, attracted a lot of working students, folks from, it was a majority, female majority, people of color, mostly Hispanic students. It's like UT, a Hispanic serving institution. And as a person of color myself, we know there are challenges and barriers journalists of color face that white journalists don't. And I'm concerned because looking for web stars, you're looking for the self-selecting, the people who stand out in the crowd. How are you going to find those folks when the web stars are overwhelmingly white? And, there's a lot of racism that journalists of color, especially young folks, face. So I just wanted to, hear what your thoughts on that and give you a chance to comment. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Well, I understand, and you asked me what we can do, and I think one, we can be aggressive about looking, because there actually are web stars of color. They might not be all famous in the sense of household names, but that they are talented, right? And so what we have to do is find the ones that may not yet be famous, but are talented, and make them famous and work with them, and be super smart and aggressive about demonstrating that we have an environment that values them, and then working hard to bring them in. And that's work, and that's work that we have to do. I'd love to get your card and make sure our editors have access to people like you who have grappled firsthand with these opportunities and issues, and we have to be more part of the community, and demonstrate a commitment to that. And hopefully we'll prove that, and hopefully we'll be part of the solution.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this was a fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you. This was really wonderful.